looking down on.
Welcome, everybody. Youngstown's Talk Channel, Joe and Kelin.
Welcome.
What's up?
Just wondering why I annoy you so much. Everything I do, everything I say.
Well, you're not the only one. So if I basically bless the entire audience and the entire populace of the area, everybody annoys me. So you're just no different than everyone else.
My air drums.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun.
So the person that said that Joe never takes phone calls or doesn't put a priority on listenership, I did turn on the phone lines, and if you don't call and don't participate, then I'll never turn them on again. So that's my invitation.
That?
Somebody just shit talking says that I fear callers and what they might say during the program, and they felt slighted. So I'm doing it. That's for you.
It's so funny. You literally invite them to physically show up, get on camera, and be here and say their piece. And they're like, no, but I'll shit talk you all day long.
Yeah. All right. What do you got? You get first strike.
I don't know. I'll tell you this, like, strong, intense thought I keep having every day. And I feel like if I act on it, I'm going to get myself killed.
Hey, I mean, is it worthwhile? I mean, that
probably
you can
not.
Martyr yourself.
Yeah. I just, Isaac's up there on Joe's annoying list.
No, he moves. He's sort of like the mobility annoying person where he'll get in an annoying phase and then he'll be my best love, and then he'll go back to annoying. He moves around in those stratas. I don't.
I'm just always annoying.
No, you move up and down.
Okay.
Everybody does that.
And what this is, Isaac, is our beginning show theme song, our opening music. Yeah. I air drum to it, and I hum. That's just the bane of Joe's existence.
Nobody could be that enthralled by drumming that every time it elicits a drumming response from you. That's all.
I mean, I feel wrong if I don't do it.
Okay. All right. Well, I've tolerated it, and we're good.
You also don't like seeing me a minute before 9 a.m. If I'm 2 or 3 minutes before 9, which to me is on time, is punctual, you're like, why do I have to look at your stupid face for an extra few minutes? And I'm like, I'm sorry.
It's my regiment. You don't respect the regiment?
You ever watch Step Brothers? Where I'm like Will Ferrell and you're like, if you don't do something about your face. And I'm like, I'll try to work on that. I'll try to work on that.
Well, and even in like some couples, later on in a marriage, the idiosyncrasies of your mate start annoying you. The way they breathe, the way they eat, and it's not even big things; it's small things. When you're around somebody so often, you get annoyed by the things that, like, why are you breathing so heavy?
My husband has this telltale sign that he's about to say something, not like long-winded, but he's about to like make a statement, because he will every single time he's talking, we're in a conversation, everything's fine. He's never in his life needed to clear his throat. But when you hear, well, yeah, because I go, here we go. Here's a monologue.
I love that.
Start your monologue. And I can tell it's coming when he goes,
Yes. Predictability.
Oh, it's annoying.
And that's why, like, he gets mad at me when I'm not on time. Yeah, anybody who's unpredictable. If you say 11:51, if you're 11:50, you lied. If you're 11:51, it's exactly what you said. And 11:52 is freaking late.
And you know what's funny? The only reason I was even a minute or so earlier is because I gave myself plenty of time to get here on time, just in case the roads were bad or there was an accident because the roads were bad or anything of that nature. I purposely gave myself extra time because you would be like, I can't believe someone didn't show up. I can't believe someone was late. The roads and the weather aren't that bad.
Life is not fair.
There's no winning with you.
You have choices, and sometimes you make good ones and sometimes you make bad ones. So, okay, so we have a snowstorm coming into town.
Yeah.
Right. And everybody's flipping out about it.
Get your milk, get your eggs.
You'll go to the grocery store and the shelves will be picked over because people who think they're absolutely going to die. People who take caloric intakes of plus or minus 90% of what they should are all of a sudden thinking if they can go one day without eggs, they're actually going to starve out and they're going to be dead. Like they're going to be in the street. They're going to be dead bodies lined on the all street. So why do we get such a visceral overreaction to things that are unimportant, but then really important things people are just brain dead to? It's it baffles me.
While I do think sometimes people can, Carter says, see, Joe, she is hilarious.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Carter. While sometimes, yes, people do overreact a bit, I think that's out of seeing at some point the very real threat that was faced. And if you weren't prepared, like, wasn't it just maybe a couple of years ago? I want to say it was like maybe right before I moved back to Ohio, there was a bad snowstorm. And I know my mom was without power for like a week or so. Like it was a while. And if you don't have something that supplies heat or food in your house or anything of that nature, you are kind of pretty screwed for a while. So I think it's the potential to be like, hey, we better really be ready for anything, which is Joe Danyi's MO, by the way. Then maybe it's not an overreaction.
No, it's totally self-serving. So, okay, you take two scenarios, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we have this relationship with risk and what the potential downsides are. And when it's self-serving, we figure it out. And when it's not self-serving, we figure it out. Okay, so let's just say you made a reservation for some kind of service out there. You paid $150 for 4 people to go do something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now your $600 is on the freaking line, right? And there is snow, and you're like, there's a safety risk, right? If I go and do this, like my life is in freaking peril. So watching the reaction of someone justifying the loss of $600, they will rent an SUV that has 4-wheel drive to be able to get there. But a thing like school, it's like the temperatures are 17 degrees. I might die. Let's not go there today. And the amount of effort and adaptability that's put into something is either uniform or it is proportional to self-interest. And that's what I look at in society, whether or not, when it comes to something free like education. Like what happens if every parent had to pay $80 a day for the kid to go to a school? They wouldn't be like doing a dance and putting ice cubes in the toilet to have a day where they lose their $80. They would figure out an effing way. But we're so soft and we're so self-interested that sometimes we justify and make the risk the reason why we don't have to do something that we really didn't want to do anyway. And sometimes we're like, I'm going to like hire a giant and make sure that this thing happens. And that difference is where I pay most of my attention.
So kind of like yesterday, for example, my husband had an important meeting he had to go to near Pittsburgh. So there was a little bit of a drive. As I'm leaving, I look at him and I go, you know what? My car is more reliable than your truck right now. Do you want to switch cars today to make sure you get there and nothing goes wrong?
Yeah,
and
you're adaptable.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
it's like you sort of think like, what's the priority? What could happen? Yes. How do we best set ourselves up to avoid failure?
So if you take like I have a 15-year-old, so I'm going to use the 15-year-old. And you say, hey, temperatures are low today. And there's some wind chill. And there's a bunch of snow out there. Do you think it's too dangerous to wait for the bus for 15 minutes to pick you up? And they'll be like, yeah, way too effing dangerous. I don't want to risk my life to stand out for the bus. I don't think I should go today. And then different conversation later on in the day, 10 o'clock, right? Hey, there's some wind chill and there's snow. Maybe you shouldn't go sledding down at the golf course. And they're like, no, I think I'm capable. I will survive and go sledding today. So it is determined by what you want and your self-interest versus like a real calibration with what risk is.
Okay. What if, and I don't know that this is the case, I'm just saying, what if they said, we know there are a handful of kids in our district that maybe don't have a lot of money. They don't have warm winter clothing and coats. Their parents have to leave very early to go to work, and they're standing out in frigid, freezing temperatures. They're not going sled riding later. They don't own a snowsuit or a sled. They truly are going to possibly suffer if school is not canceled. Do you still cancel school because of that group of kids that you want to protect?
But the minority? No, you don't. You basically say, hey, here's your green light that if you feel like it's a real danger, stay home. 10% of the kids don't show up. And the thing that we're paying for, regardless if they're there or not, still happens. With
is it an excused absence if they say, I couldn't come today?
For sure.
So then couldn't any kid who just didn't want to go also get an excused absence?
So basically what you're basically saying is that if there's corruption in a system where someone's going to take advantage of a system and lie so that we should cancel everything instead of like the
I'm just wondering what you think.
Take the bright kid who just needs more education to take their ACT to get in a better college, right? Let's not give that person a class which gives them a disadvantage because of the idiot who can't figure out how to get to school, but they can figure out how to go sled riding.
What if they were like, okay, school's closed unless you want to come? This teacher will be here.
Keep the school open, and any smart kids who are adaptable, who can figure out how to get to school without dying, come.
Yeah,
right?
Like everybody gets an excused absence today. You don't have to come.
Right, and then the smart kids show up,
if you want
and they still get a freaking education.
This staff member's
because
here.
the taxpayer's still going to pay for it, regardless if you show up or not. So at least get some value for the smart kids. Let the dumb kids fall behind. The people who are just going to make excuses, let them go into some kind of I don't know, colony where they can hit rocks with a pickaxe or something like that. That's the way society should be worked.
I mean, personally, my experience with it is anytime there's a snow day, it's like, crap, because usually a parent now has to miss something.
Yeah.
You know, like you can't stay home alone all day. So screw whatever I had to do.
Catering to the weak is never a societal advantage. So, have you read Utopia?
No,
I went and read book 2 again today.
Last
night. And man, like you need to read this. You really do. It just, do you know the premise?
Sort of, kind of like everybody gets what they want or something. I don't know.
Okay. The cliche version of it, but it's very, you could read that and take Sir Thomas More, and this was 1500s literature, right? And it's phenomenal because the whole premise of the book was sort of sculpted as if you could make a movie about this really quickly. And so it's taking a philosophy and giving it life through literature where we rolled out a plan to see what it would really be like. And what people picture as the utopia, and that's where the cliche comes from. It's a utopia, a perfect scenario, a perfect society, perfect people. There is so much blemish built in to human nature. Like it's not taking what human nature is and building it in as a consequence. It's almost like, hey, we're going to take a group of 10 people and my plan only works if the 10 people are pure. They don't lie, they don't cheat, they don't steal. They're absolute perfection. And then the society can take the mirroring of the people that are there, right? But when you scale it, it becomes bigger. And now you start taking on human nature problems. And then human nature problems is what destroys any great system. So where we're at today, we have got far too many people. We've got too many dumb people. We've got too many unadaptable people. We got too many dependents, right? Mm-hmm. So do you cater to the people who are just corrupting the system, or do you cater to the people who are uncorrupting? So you can take a snapshot and say, who do we have in mind when we built the education system? Do we build it around charity of the dumb, right? Mm. Or the excellence of the smart, right? Where the charity of the dumb, if it was vice versa, you would say, if you don't show up and if you don't care, there's massive downsides to not caring and not investing in yourself. And you almost wash out if you don't try. Like we just put you in that camp where you're, hacking on material with a pickaxe. But if it's the sort of like the smart, ambitious, then we give all the rewards to the people who try hard, figure shit out, are problem solvers, and then the society's made better because we've basically staffed it with people who try hard and don't make excuses and are predictable and are totally logical and have the brain power to carry the society.
So what group would you put the people that don't show up but do care? And they're like, I cannot. Here's this issue, whatever it is, I can't make it. I have to miss today.
And in all honesty, like that's what I say by catering. Like you don't even consider that. It's you're going to show up or you're not. So you have a job interview, right? Mm-hmm. And do you think that if there was a rule that if you don't show up, you don't get the job, right? So
it ain't gonna look good.
If you think that you can call and reschedule and that's an option, then showing up for the interview is sort of like if you feel like it, if there are any inconveniences in your world. But if you're like, number one is if you don't show up, no matter what, you don't get the job. Well, then in your brain, you're like, you're not trying to find the fitting excuse that makes it justified that you didn't show up. You know, if you don't show up, you're just not getting the job and you got to make other choices. And you become more adaptable with the necessity of trying to figure out how to make something happen in spite of hardships versus just creating a bunch of hardships so you have a bunch of excuses so you don't have to do something.
Yeah, it's funny. Speaking of that example, several weeks ago or whatever, we must have had like a bad snow or something come about. And I saw this person put on Facebook, how are the roads? Is it bad out? I have this important job interview today. I'd hate to miss it. I wanted to be like, don't miss that. This time and energy you're putting into waiting to see what somebody on Facebook tells you, get in your car and start driving and go 20 miles an hour the whole way there. Don't freaking reschedule, like, especially if it's not bad and the interviewer doesn't think it's bad. Like, you're just going to look bad either way.
But those are choices, and there should always be catering to the people who could figure shit out. And that's how we basically staff all of our important agencies and all our important governments and all our important leadership roles with people who don't just sit around and make excuses. They figure the shit out. As long as you know what the rule is. So we have 4 schools, right? Mm-hmm. We have the advanced school, we have the intermediate school, we have the normal school, and we have the dumb school. And all you do is if you don't qualify for the school, like you don't show up, you move down to the intermediate. And now there's an incentive to show up, to do the work, to invest the time. So basically, if you looked at those schools, let's just say we had all of the rule sets that managed when you end at the dumb school, it's all your decisions. It might be, catastrophes that you hit and excuses that you made and just not feeling the way the day. You end up at the dumb school. And that's where you freaking belong. I don't want to take a dumb person who doesn't try hard, who has a chaotic life, right? Mm-hmm. To end up in a smart school. And then the rest of us have to deal with dumb, unable people for the rest of our lives. And then you go into a store and expect somebody that has some brain capacity. And somehow we dealt with a smart person and a dumb person. We put them through the same funnel. And all of a sudden you got to deal with the dumb person. And it's the most annoying thing when things are staffed by dumbness, incapable people.
Oh, the worst was during COVID when there was like the great toilet paper shortage.
Yeah.
That drove me insane. There was toilet paper. And then I know down south, I don't know if you guys saw it here, for like a day or two, it was gas. Everybody just mass freaking out buying toilet paper and gas. And people would be like, you better go get some. Seriously, there's not going to be any left. And I'm like, I will not give in to this madness. There's none left because we're all being stupid. There isn't a shortage. Yes. There's a shortage because of the idiots mass fear buying. And they're like, okay, but because of that, fact remains, you're not going to have any if you don't go do it. And I'm just like, what do? Join in with the madness because you will be screwed because of everybody, or say, I'm taking a stand. I'm not doing this. You all need to stop. And then you're out.
Yeah. We've catered to the dumb, and dumb has become. If we did that today, if I circulated a panic message that something was going to be in short supply, if you don't think that would happen today, right? Nothing has changed. So all you're doing is you're putting a pinpoint and saying, yeah, in a dystopian situation, I don't care if it's zombie apocalypse or asteroids are coming or COVID or whatever. The same thing would happen today because we are populated with a bunch of dumb people who have all of this ability because we've not given proper punishment and given the position that when you make bad decisions, you need to have all of the consequence. I'm not going to shield you from consequences that would teach you how you need to integrate into the utopian society. Because if I don't give you the consequence, it emboldens you, encourages you, and you don't make any changes. And then we just have this whole subset of our population of people who are incapable of surviving the smallest obstacles.
Inconvenience.
For
just
sure.
Curious, your wife's a teacher. How does she feel about it?
We argue all the time about it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
She disagrees with you? What does she say?
Well,
She says what I say.
Teachers have a good deal. They complain a lot about what they have to deal with on the day to day, but they have an effing great deal. All right, and we don't really look and measure the success of teachers. We give them all of these benefits. We pay them higher than most industries in our deal. So basically, we have a work product at the end of the day that I don't care how good or poorly you do, you will have a job for like 50 years if you want it. Nobody can ever get rid of you. We don't measure you and say, oh yeah, you're a substandard teacher that takes a bunch of people and they come out of your class and they don't know shit. We can't get rid of you because
have you ever been a teacher?
Oh, I'm a natural teacher, but I would never I would never go in the industry of teaching because it's not about excellence. It's just a
heard it's a lot of listening to
commodity
parents
and transact. That's why I'd be fired like 10 days into my teaching deal.
Oh, the parents emailing you and calling you.
I wouldn't care. I would not care because that's not currency. You send your kids to me. I give them insights. What you feel once you've given them to me, I don't give two shits about. I'm smart. You're dumb. If you want to become smarter, I'll tell you what to do at home and shut the F up because I don't care about anything. I don't care about their home life. I don't care about their situations. I don't care about what they want to do. I don't care about their happiness. My job is to take insights and wisdom and jam them in your head, in the kid's head, no matter which way I can get it in there.
And do you think you should be audited for doing that?
Absolutely. Every teacher should be audited.
How so?
I would probably do like they do in retail. I would send in a student, right? That was a mystery student. And basically that
like
student,
a secret
shopper. And they would basically be able to audit and through what they're learning, what they did, how they felt like their education was, adapted up every single day.
That way you're not stuck with test scores.
We don't care about test scores.
We covered this 800 times and I can't help that you're a bad test taker.
I'm going to take a smart person that has capacity that I've determined is a receiving agent of whatever you're going to do. I know that they could be taught, and I'm going to judge you based on how much knowledge that person has at the end of the day.
So beginning of the school year, there's a student in every classroom, and you don't know who. Exactly. Is like a secret. I don't actually need to pass this class, but I'm going to report on how you do.
They're going to have recording devices. I'm going to know what you said to them. I'm going to know what your classroom's like. I know what if you're above or below standards, how much time you spend on the smart kids versus the dumb kids. Education would be completely different if I had.
And you're going to base this on a child.
What?
A child will be the person documenting, reporting.
Oh yeah,
this
they'll be in the classroom. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of modern education. I think it is so below where what our society needs. And you say private versus public. I'm not in my utopia for education. I think, private schools have the theoretical advantage, but then they're put in financial disadvantages because the education system doesn't want competition. They want the, public to be the dominant and the private to be something that you can pull off if you've got philanthropic dollars, but not like real economic dollars. And there are private schools that are, completely tuition based, and they take the people who can afford the tuitions to segregate them off from the dumb population, and they can achieve real education that way. And so is education a way of moderating the dumb kids, like just managing, right? Mitigating dumbness, or is it higher learning, right? Where we're taking people who are willing and able and filling their brains with as much stuff. So you're in a class, like I would have been a terrible deal because I was class clown, didn't care. There was nothing about what I was doing that made any sense whatsoever. So what I would do with me, right, is I would put me in a special place. I would have been distanced from the distractions that I created in school and put in a place because I got no value. If you would have rated how much stuff I learned, like it was probably in the single digits. It was a 9% efficiency.
Why is
rate.
that, do you think?
Because every person has different interests and learns in a different fashion. but we don't pair up the way that people like to learn. So my kid went to Montessori. I would have done phenomenal in Montessori because it was 90% interest driven. So I would have been heavy into maths and heavy into sciences and all those other stupid things that I had to do that I absolutely didn't want to do. And I felt there was no value. My brain checked out and it ruined it.
Well, did you not disrupt your math and science classes and you
No,
did well in those?
I was all in, except for the ones that were so below my capacity that I was bored because what I was doing made absolutely no sense. The ones that were the higher maths, you got into the geometries and the trig and the
do we
algebras.
Teach kids just because you're bored, you can be disrespectful and disrupt
you get me out
else.
of there. If I'm bored and disrespectful, I'm not in that class. What would you do if you were running a painting class and you find some person who only knows stickers?
I agree. You remove them,
kick them out.
But devil's advocate, are we then teaching just because you don't like what we're all talking about?
You're forcing information that is not going to be received, right, through punishment. You move the person to what they really want to learn or need to learn, right, that will be received. And I would move kids from place to place until they found something that they can get engrossed in and actually get an education out of. Anybody who would be paying that tuition would require that.
But is there ever a time when you're older, graduated, out of school, working in the real world, that you need to have developed the ability to sit and be respectful and behave, even though what is currently happening is uninteresting to you? Or do you just say,
you would never
dance around and cause problems
just
and
like
leave?
If you went and paid for a class that you paid $100 for, you would have respect for it because you actually had to make a sacrifice to be there. When you give it for free, you don't have any respect for what you're paying for. So, when we were doing technology classes, if I used to run a bunch of free classes, and the people that would show up had no value for what I was teaching. They showed up because it was free, they had free coffee, and there was nobody that actually cared about what they were learning. The only reason they were there was because it was for free. The only way that I got real students to show up is to make it cost a little bit more than what they really wanted to pay. And if I had 12 students that showed up for free and I had 3 students that showed up for $50, right? I know that those 3 students really wanted to be there and were willing to sacrifice some of their expendable income to be in that class. So they took notes and they paid attention and they took it seriously.
Yeah, but let's say you get a job, you love your job, everything's great, you have the productive days that you want to have. It's an interesting subject matter, but every so often you're required to sit in a meeting that you think is 100% pointless and an enormous waste of time, but you're being paid to be there. Are you allowed to be disruptive and just not come? Or do you have to learn to grin and bear it and then get back to it?
It's contractual, right? So if I do things all the time that I don't want to do, right, for the sake of being paid for being there. Right. So
and the other things that you do like.
So when you're paying physically, I wrote the check to be there. There's a transaction of what behavior has to be, attention has to be,
or I'm accepting
an engagement. So if just like, if somebody came to fix your furnace, you'd have a standard that if you paid them, you would have expectations they did something. You wouldn't care if they wanted to be there or being engaged in it or whatever. The only reason we're having this conversation is we're giving something to someone that doesn't know why they're there, aren't paying for being there. So they don't have a purpose. They don't have a sacrifice in being there. Yeah. And so you have a bunch of wandering zombies that were like, hey, teacher, I want you to take somebody who has no value in what you're doing and make them learn something.
In fact, someone else is paying for you to come and do it.
Right. And so that's just a bad deal. So if you took my 2 elements, make it a sacrificial deal where it had to be hard to do something, right? And unwilling can check out at any time. So if I'm in a meeting where there's a state disbursement of state dollars and I don't want to be there, I have to consider whether or not I'm not going to get the disbursement by not being there. If I want the disbursement, I got to do something I'm willing to do, but I've got free will. I can do either one of those things. But that's when we cater to the dumb, unadaptable. All we have is a line of justifications, excusing, where I want the benefit. I still want to get the state thing, but I don't want to actually show up for the meetings. It's the cost of getting it.
So why, if someone does not see value in something and they choose to opt out, why does that make them the dumb ones? they're not getting value of it. Like, are you dumb because you're like, I'm not going to sit in this class? This is a waste of my time. I'm
just
opting
saying
out.
Statistics. There are not brilliant people amongst us that just don't have the
I
capacity.
will give you, yes.
Okay.
Most likely they're dumb and they're just there and they're not paying attention when they should be.
We're not being selective. We don't have
Yeah.
this filter that takes the people who really shouldn't be there in the first place and we force them to be there. So now we're forcing teachers and administrators to deal with people who shouldn't be there in the first place. So all those consequences then become the priority when it should be like, if you don't want to be there and you don't have the capacity, let's move you to this place where you at least have a chance at some kind of survival or some kind of prosperity.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But if we make things taboo, like, does everybody want to be a high achiever? Like, if that were the deal where we are uber competitive nation, where your IQ was everything, that I know everybody's IQ. We could sit here, I'd be across from you. You'd say that you have a 120, and I would say, wow, that's pretty good. And I want to be around people who have a 120 or better. And if you come in here and you're like Somali's 69, right? I'm like, I'm not going to have that much to talk to you about. You're not going to be add much to my deal. So go be around other low IQ people, right? And be distanced from the people who do things and can solve problems and not make excuses and not become a dependent. And that's going to be the real, sort of like the AI problem to be solved is, what do you do with people who were loosely involved, right? The only reason they were involved because they had a strong back. They didn't have a brain that could do anything, but we used their ability. Once we have a bunch of strong backs that are taken out of the marketplace, what do we do with dumb brains and small, strong backs? It's got to be a place for them. Are they on a treadmill creating the electricity for the AI dudes? I don't know, but that's going to be a contemplation. In the past, history is going to say we're going to manage dumb people the same way that we always do, have no consequence, make them the, sort of like the focus of our political ire. That's IRE, and it's I always sound like an effing pirate when I say that word, so I don't say it often.
I love it.
But anyway,
do you feel someone can have a high IQ and just be a bad test taker?
Yeah, that's why testing should not even be part of curriculum.
I've seen people. I remember I used to work with this girl. She was trying to get into I think it was physical therapy school or something like that. She knew her stuff. She was smart. She studied constantly. But she would be like, she had the worst test anxiety to where she was sick to her stomach the day of a test. She couldn't focus. She was hyperventilating and would fail every time. And she's like, I know the material. Stop making me sit in a room by myself with this book and take a test.
That's how dumb we are. That's how dumb we are because
yeah.
It is a method. Like, there are some people that are good test takers and you can get a lot of insight from when they can, basically reparrot what you've taught them to make sure that they got it. But I'm a guy that is so bored with the bubbles. I'll answer C on everything. I'll get my 45%.
It is the most common answer.
I'll get my 45% and whatever. But if you ask me to do something like go solve this problem, now if you took the person that took the test and they did really well on taking tests, and you take the person that actually can do the thing, you put me head to head with them. I failed every test, but I can build you a robot, right?
Yeah.
Versus the person that took the test and give you theoretically how to build a robot, but can't pick up a wrench or can't fabricate anything or can't figure out software controls or have any kind of skill in actually doing the thing. Like, you got to pick. And that's why I say, there has to be these different pathways on the people who can do things. You need to pluck them out of the testing industries super fast and just get them on the purpose of building and creating things. And the people who are good test takers, theoretical designers, right? Put them on a different path because they are different skill sets. I can assure you.
I remember a class I had in college. I can't remember what the class was, but we did a whole section on test taking. And it was it was these things to remember. If you have multiple choice and you have no idea, I have no idea what the answer is at all, go C. C is percentagely the most common multiple test answer. If it's true or false and you have absolutely no idea, you got to take a complete guess true.
Thank you.
Because it is easier to form a true statement than a false statement. And it was all these things. It was so you're teaching someone how to guess, read into something, and take a test. But what you're testing on, you don't know anything about.
You can't apply it.
Yeah.
So if you were to take me in a room and just apply the messaging, the actual skill set, I can go do the thing every single time. I've done it in pretty much every industry that I've tried. So I'm a doer. I'm not a learner how to doer. Like, teach me some tools that allow me to go do the thing, and I can do it every single time. But if you give me a 6-week course on something where you're going to actually only apply the knowledge at 10%, then my brain's like, I'm learning 90% of the shit that I'm never going to learn. Why am I wasting my time? I want to go do the thing.
I hated anytime I was required to take a language. I took Spanish, and I would rather do an oral test than a written test because I would fail every single written test by spelling a word wrong, forgetting an accent, forgetting a tilde, blah, blah, blah. Whereas if I was actually interacting with a Spanish-speaking person, I probably wouldn't even come close to speaking it fluently, not at all. But I would be in instances where I'm like, all right, we are communicating here. I don't understand every word you're saying, but I understood enough, and I'm using context clues. We can have some kind of communication. And isn't that the point of learning the language, not making sure that the spelling is right on the test and you miss a mark for every
Well, first off, I have
mark?
to point out, like, how has your life prospered since you learned Spanish?
First of all, I don't know Spanish. I know a few words.
You did dedicate 9 weeks of your life to be able to learn Spanish. Now tell me all of the benefits that that just flooded over you because now you know Spanish. Give me a percentage.
Been maybe 2 instances I used.
All right, give me about it. Give me what you gained by
it. It wasn't even anything I had to do. It was just, Spanish.
Now let's just say you can go back. You can get those 9 weeks back, and you could basically say, hey, as an adult, there are some blind spots in my life that I was never taught about. That sucks. And I'm going to take Spanish out, and I'm going to put this thing in. Could you think half dozen things that you wish you could have learned during those 9 weeks?
I don't regret learning a little Spanish. I wish I knew more Spanish.
Okay. What's your investing prowess in stocks, puts, calls, bonds, mutual funds, any of that kind of stuff?
I know other people that do that, and I don't know anything about it.
Okay. So if we take those 9 weeks, you're glad you learned Spanish, right? But you're not glad
like basic
that you
Spanish.
Don't really have a thing for investing.
Yeah, I'm not even fluent in Spanish. I know a couple of words about Spanish and nothing about
you understand,
this other stuff.
Like in your professional life and in your adult life, that kind of delivery of a skill set that you've never been able to use in place of the opportunity cost of having learned something that you can actually utilize, that's a sin.
I 100% believe that throughout my life and my education, I have spent time on something that was pointless and I missed something valuable. However, I do think some people get some value of it because they're exposed to something they would have never known they actually had an interest in. What if someone was forced to take it and they're like, this is fun. I love this. I want to be a Spanish teacher. I want to travel the world and speak other languages. They wouldn't have known that if they weren't exposed to it a little bit. And isn't school sort of meant to push you out of your comfort zone to see if you can pick up on things?
Measure it by the output, right? Mm-hmm. And I think it's just like every other industry. You can sell a product and you can get paid for doing it, and there's low standards and nobody questions it and you can't get rid of it. What do? You try to get as many people through that system as you possibly can. You're not hand selecting and taking those people and giving that as an option. You're trying to force feed a bunch of people through a system that has no value. So here's what you're arguing. 5% of the people get through a Spanish class and find out that they have some kind of occupation, but 95% of the people just waste 9 weeks of their life and get absolutely nothing out of it. Is that a good trade? Are you willing to sacrifice 95% of the time wasted to get to the 5%? Or do we just have a system where the people who are thinking like, what can I do with it? What are my new exposures? How can I, let's just open classes up and let people select whatever it is that they take and make no requirements whatsoever. You'd go to the university and you know what you would take? You would take just the ones that apply to what you want to do. You would have to pay for a bunch of bullshit.
All the electives.
Right? But they force the electives and the things that have almost no value for the sake of a low percentage of people by justifying it that you get to have another classroom dedicated to something. You get to have another teacher on payroll and another taxpayer that has to front the whole thing. Not an efficient method of unearthing skill. You know what unearths skill? Competition. Right?
Yeah.
not forcing everybody through it, making it very exclusive to people who try hard and are smart and are capable. And then your Spanish class could be better because guess who it caters to? The people who actually want to do Spanish, thinking, and even in those classes, maybe 50% of the people get through it, think they wanted to do it, and they were exposed to something and they change their mind and go do something else. But when you build in the people who are just disruptions, total time wasters, the smart kids are the ones that pay the consequences because you can't get into the advanced features of learning because you're managing dumb people who are just disrupting the whole process.
I was thinking last night about school and the internet. My daughter is finishing this crochet project. She made a bag, like a purse, all by herself. She crocheted it, and she 100% is self-taught from YouTube. Mm-hmm. She knew nothing about crochet, watched a bunch of videos, knows how to crochet quite well. And I'm like, that's so interesting. In the day that we have now, I mean, back in the day, like internet was newer. We didn't have internet. You sort of had school, classrooms, tutors, books maybe to learn everything you wanted to learn. Do you think the internet nowadays and the fact that almost anything you want to learn is at your fingertips, is that going to reshape our schools and
100%.
And how they have to operate?
It's a far better product. It's free as hell. You have the basically combined experiences of a billion different specializations, right? And so if you want to learn it, like I dedicate 2 days a week on Saturday and Sunday. I do an early morning session, taking something that I have no exposure to whatsoever, and I go learn it, right? And it's just like I can get through a 6-hour video on something, some expert talking about something, and I can figure out pretty quickly whether I want to watch a second video or not. Things that take my, are appealing to me and I want to dig in, I might spend the next 5 Saturdays on. And things that, okay, I was kind of wrong, this is kind of boring, and I don't think I can apply it anywhere or make any money off of it or whatever, I move on to the next topic. And I've done this for the last 30 years. You could say that I have continuing education and college type of topics, and I could do that for the rest of my life. Let's just say I was bought into the college or education industrial complex, right? I would think in order to go get some education, I would have to go to some kind of community college or some internet-based college, because the only way that I can get authentic information is through some professor, right? But since the schools failed at adapting their product for how people learn, they didn't become more sophisticated with our society in general. I had to break out and say, yeah, the education system is managing dumb people. If I want to get a smart person's education, I got to do it on my own. And that I adapted out of traditional education into my own flavor of it. And I've been doing that ever since.
But with that being so prevalent, like nutrition, your nutritionist now, you can find free information online. Physical trainers, you can find that information online. Really anything, cooking, anything literally for free. Anything. Do you think we would then eventually, because sometimes I'll watch these people and I'm like, you could be getting paid for this and you're giving this away for free. Tony Robbins, really well-known motivational speaker, is doing a free seminar online. He said, here's the link. Anybody, it's 100% free. Come watch at your leisure. And I'm like, you used to get paid to do that. That's your job. Mm-hmm. Do you think they're going to eventually have to either rein that in a little bit so that they can actually have a profession or make money? Or do you think the internet is going to one day not be free?
Well, they do get paid.
I mean, you do pay to have internet and everything, and there's ads, obviously, but I don't know.
But in meritocracy, if you pick somebody who gives you good information and their authority on the subject, by you watching and many other people watching, they get paid for their expertise, but it's based on merit. They're not forcing you. You're like, okay, everybody's last name that starts with B has to watch this video, right? Yeah. And then, somebody else pays for it. This is like if you're good and present well and you have good information and you help people, you get paid. If you put out a video and let's just say you pick any teacher from elementary school all the way through high school, and I want you to take their basic curriculum and I want you to put it on the internet. And I want you to basically measure them, how watchable it is and how much value you get out of it, right? Mm-hmm. And if a teacher wouldn't do well on YouTube because it's going to require, right, having great presentability, great information, great engagement,
time,
right?
Lots of time.
Teachers would go out of business only because if kids weren't forced to be there, there would be nobody watching that presentation. So you have to make it so that you figure out how the people are that like to watch you and how to learn, and you cater to the people who want to learn. That's sort of like the best sort of like a proof of concept that there actually is. If a teacher said, hey, I want to know that I get 20 kids in my classroom that get to experience me every day. I want to make myself that everybody who's in my class so wants to be there that even if I canceled class, I would have people show up, right? That's what a YouTuber has to consider, that if they're terrible, nobody watches and they don't make any money and they got to pick something different. Teachers would go out of business if kids weren't forced to be there.
You think so?
100%.
All of them? Or do you think there'd be a handful?
There wouldn't be a lot of them. Yeah, there would not be a lot of them. Only because, like, I mean, you be the judge. If you picture your kid's classroom right now, and you just got a camera angle and perfect audio and video of what's going on there, and you're like, I'm going to invest 45 minutes in learning along with my kid, right? And then I'm going to pay $95 to watch this camera angle. And if you decide to take on a second one, I would be shocked. Shocked.
There might be a couple I'd be like, this is worth it. We're sticking with it.
But that in the future, that's the way it's going to be. There's going to be a lot of these sort of like corrupted versions of forced something are going to disappear. It's going to go buffet table, almost like cable television stations. You paid one cable bill and every channel got a portion of what you did or what you spent. And there was a lot of stations that you never watched that you were supporting because you had to. But then when they went buffet style, you got to pay the people that you watch more often and cancel the people that you didn't want to watch anymore. And you watch a lot of these stations disappear only because they never could have supported an audience unless it was forced.
Like PBS?
They're even worse stations than PBS that went away only because you couldn't look at them and say your production value was low, your content was terrible, you were some like, favor for a friend that even have the show on to begin with. Now that people have to choose you, they're not choosing.
Are you talking about like those little, every region I think has like their local channel that's just, this public. Yeah. Oh, I have a show on this TV, but it's like really badly produced. And
what's the numbers for last show? 8. Oh, that kind of thing.
I remember back years ago, I was in a job where I sold advertising. I hated it. And one of the benefits of this one package was like, oh, and by the way, we'll make a little commercial for you and we'll have it on this channel. And they're like, oh, okay. Thanks. That better just be like the icing on the cake though, because who freaking cares?
Yeah.
But
that's how tech is going to, I hopefully fix education in the future. But again, because, when you have a true meritocracy, the bottom rungs absolutely do lose. And you can't fault them because we had a culture that catered to the dumb ones amongst us. And when they get to the point where they're going to be like, nobody's like, kind of stumping for me at this point, and all of the benefits dried up and I actually have to go out of the cave and survive. Like at what point, let's just say you had a zoo, Kelin Zoo, and you had a couple animals and you're like, I'm starting a zoo. I'm going to do some rehab on animals. I'm going to take care of them and give them a safe place. And everybody agrees with that. You're going to be taken care of, Mr. Bald Eagle. But one day you're going to be strong enough that you can go out on your own. Yeah. And I'm going to have to wean myself off of you because up to this point, when you needed meat, I brought you meat. When you needed security, I put up a fence. When you needed this, you needed medical attention, whatever. You're going to go out in the wild and you are going to have to survive on your own. You're going to have to hunt for yourself. You're going to have to protect yourself. And you're going to have to, consider the risks of your behavior because if you get sick, nobody's going to come for you. Right. So you can't take risky behaviors that you can't stomach. You can't do in a weakened state. It's all on you. So what would you do for the last 5 months of having this bald eagle that you're going to release in the wild? Would you keep them dependent to the very last moment and then be like, fly free? and then be surprised when what happens if they die within 2 weeks because they have no ability to survive.
Yeah.
Or 5 months, you wean them off of all the dependencies so they can fly free and survive on their own. I mean, that's the contemplation. You got dumb people. They're going to lose really big because of technological advancements, and you need to start weaning them off of the dependencies that we've given them for the right reasons. We want to take care of Mr. Bald Eagle, right? He was in our care. We made sure he lived. We wanted to take care of him, but we know that our dependencies made him vulnerable to being dependent on me forever.
So are the dumb people made dumb?
Yes, a lot of them.
It's not even like they have a choice in it. It's, well, you're my source of knowledge and education.
Well, but you mentioned it yesterday. So let's just say your kids thought that power was free and garbage collection was free and housing was free and insurances was free. And then they get married and they go out into the real world and are like, oh shit. Right?
Yeah.
But if you start talking to them when they're 12 and you start giving them the little slightest indication that these things
self-awareness,
then when they enter it, they at least have perceptions that know that there's a little more to survival than playing Xbox and doing the things that they got used to over their childhood. You weren't going to expose them to paying rent when they were 12, right? But they need to know that rent exists at some point.
My mom told me when we were little one time, my brothers and I, we were out somewhere and we wanted something. I don't know if there was a toy or we wanted to do something. And my mom's like, well, I don't have any money. And we're like, well, go to the bank in a box. You go to that box and take money out of it. And she's like, you guys need to understand, I have to put money in that box to get it out. That's not just a money box that people come and get money.
That'd be nice if there was.
I know. We had a whole bunch of comments above, I think. Let's see.
More dumbs than there are smarts. Cater to the dumb. The state no longer excused or non-excused absences when it comes to school's report card in Ohio. So do you think there should be, like, what are we teaching here? Like, I think if I was smart and you gave me the books and I just wanted to skip your lectures and never show up to class, and I show up to take the test and I pass the test and I have excellence in it, what does it matter if I show up or not?
I had a professor that said, I don't care if you're here. Here's what you need to pass. Turn this in. And if I have it, you're good.
But if you need people to be compliant and show up, that means you're basically creating subordinates, right? You're really trying to craft that this is not about you. You fall in line. You don't talk and you sit in your seat, and more of the compliancy is what's being taught than the actual intelligence that can enter your brain.
Well, again, there's a difference between, listen, I'm coming to your class and I'm paying you for this class. So I'll go about it the way I think I get the most value out of it. If it were, you're paying me, then I better show up if you tell me to show up.
So it's a requirement for the people paying the bill that at least if I'm paying for it,
I think it's a consideration at least. Don't you? Like you said, you hate when kids get school canceled. Taxpayers are paying for the school you want them to go. But in college, you're paying. So can you tell me when I can and can't show up if I'm paying you?
It's an indictment, though. If people don't show up at your class, then there's nothing valuable in your class. And if it's like, if I paid $25 to take the test and I could just buy the book on my own, what's your value? I
don't want to pay you if I feel like I don't need to be here.
if there's people that don't want to be there and I tell you don't have to be and no one shows up, that's on you.
And that's kind of how I had a professor. Again, it was the most waste of time class. It was like orientation is literally what it was called to this major. And he said, at the end of the semester, turn in a one-page, double-spaced typed paper of what you would like to do with this as a career, maybe, or why you're even in this major. You turn that in. I don't care if I ever see your face again. And I said, we're paying for this. We're paying for this. I already know why I'm here, but I got to pay you to tell you why I'm here. And I don't even have to show up. Like, most people were like, yay, one less class I don't have to go to. And it's like, but you paid for this.
Mm-hmm. And that is sort of like the industry of academics. The more they can like wring out of you money wise for giving you classes that you'll do because you've been taught to be compliant, you won't question the fact, except for you're obviously intelligent. And so you're saying like, when you go to the store and you spend $5, you know what $5 should buy you. And anytime that you feel like you were shafted where you got less value than you paid for, you've got a problem with it. And I think every person that participates in our society should have that same injustice meter going way off when they get shafted by an institution that is protected and insulated from market forces.
And it is, I mean, a lot of it is hindsight. I remember a couple other examples. I had a class, I think it was a biology class. First day of class, the professor came in and he's like talking about what we can expect this semester, gave us some general information and said, but my birthday was yesterday and I'm going to go home. Like he was hungover. And he's like, so any other questions? No, you guys go. At the time, you're like, yeah, sweet, I'm out. You know, I had another professor that said, if Youngstown City schools are closed, I'm closed. I am not coming if Youngstown City is not going. And at the time, we're like, sweet. And I was in college watching the news every morning like a kid looking for a snow day. Come on, Youngstown City schools, because in my class is canceled. And then you realize when you're an adult, oh my God, I paid for that. I paid to not go. Mm-hmm. It's a little different than
but do you
being
feel
forced to go.
And that's why I said most of this argument is motivated in self-interest. You're not taking a value proposition and feeling good that you paid for that class that day and got good value for your dollar. You're saying I was forced to be here because it's part of what's required of me as a student. I wouldn't be here if I didn't have to be. So I'm looking for a reason, an excuse not to be here. And if the snow day gives you the excuse you need so you can justify it where it's not your irresponsibility, but it's some outside force, then you got a whole society that gets excited to be irresponsible and it not be their fault.
How do you feel about paying for a class that you were involved or required to be in a group project? The whole, if your group members slack and never come and don't lift a finger, it's still your grade, so you better do it all. And you paid for that. Would you do that?
No.
I
would be on my own island immediately because I would see the risk and I would take a poll of the people, almost like we get put on an island, right? And it's a survival thing. Everybody wins $10 million if we're on that island. And I come across some person who has absolutely no skill set whatsoever. I am getting them off that island or myself on my own effing island because I know I could do it. And I'm not going to carry an anchor at all. It's not going to be a predicate to how, if I live or die based on the weakest. But that's sort of like encapsulates this whole discussion. Do you want to be in a society where you have 50% of the population are nothing but anchors and you're going to have to drag them along the group project of being a United States citizen for the rest of your life? Do you want anchors or do you want to distance yourself from anchors? Let them go have their own anchor island where they can be as disruptive and, destructive as they possibly want to be, but it doesn't affect you.
If you think about it, that really is kind of preparing you for just everyday life.
Yeah.
Is you have to work hard because your survival and your success depends on it. But everyone else around you can slack and get the same thing.
Yeah, but I say that it's transactional because you're going to have people in society that are great in math and you're not. But they're good in X and you're not. And so the transaction is, hey, I'm going to do the math stuff. You do the strong labor stuff.
Yeah.
And I will be considerate enough to know that my math is more important than your strong back. And so long that both of us, you do the labor stuff, I do the math stuff, and we know we're both getting something out of it. That is the horse trading that goes along with specialties. Now, if you come across someone that you have to carry and they add nothing back to it, that's when we have our first disagreement. But I'm not saying everybody should be going after specialties where everybody has the same ones and then we all have the same blind spots. It's about negotiating relationships between people where I'm good at this and you're good at this, and we'll do our part, right? Mm-hmm. Even if it's different things.
Yeah, if I cannot do the math equation or the biology problem whatsoever, you know what, guys? We have to have a visual aid. I'll color it.
But on the island, if you and I came down, like knowing you, right? And
Yeah.
you knowing me, you know what you would say, Joe, like survival things when it comes to engineering, problem solving. I'm going to depend the shit out of, on you on this, right? Here's what I'm willing to give you so that you do that for me, right? I'm willing to do this for you. And then we're like, shake on it. And now you're my partner in it. Now, when it comes to the labor stuff, I'm not going to be like, Kelin, help me, right?
Yeah.
Because that's not your gig. But then you're going to support me by doing yours, and I'm going to support you.
Then when we're in an instance where you're like, Kelin, this is your skill set, I'm like, I got you. Let's go.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the transactional nature where we have interdependence on one another, right? But we don't need anchors. We don't need the smart kids in the class, right? Not learning all they can learn because you got a bunch of dumbheads in there that are forced to be there anyway. If you asked any smart kid in any class, do you wish that you got more material? If the curriculum moved faster, if you got more, stuff to touch based on what you were doing, would you take that if it meant that eliminating half the class who was just getting in the way of getting what you want? And I say cater to the smart ones who are going to make unreasonable requests to get rid of all the dumb people so they can actually do learning.
Yeah.
Teachers unions would never allow that. Yes, the industrial complex is controlled by teachers unions and the phenomenal amount of money that they put into establishing mediocrity across the board in education. Babysitting dumb kids, that is, you ask any teacher and you will say 90% of their time is put into managing the dumb ones, for sure.
The ones who don't want to be there. At
the expense of the smart ones. Tammy said, I was not interested in college for this reason. I want to learn what I need, not paying for classes that I would never use. 100%. Every consumer knows when they're getting shafted by paying for something. The government basically has this great strategy, right? If they hide the expense from you, right, you will have less standards and have less expectations from it. If you went to school, let's just say your tax money goes into the system and the system pays the school. Well, the system says now, hey, you just pay directly for your classes. You are paying $80 in your tax money per year. Every day you write the check, you send your kids with $80. Your expectation changes when you wrote the check for that day, both with what you were provided by the people providing the service and how integrated your kid was and how serious they took it. Because if you're going to spend $80, you're going to be damn sure that you do parenting enough that they go there and get the most value for that check you had to write. But if they hide it and they make it somebody else's responsibility, never cost you a dime, you never see that there was a price for sending your kid that day. You're like, oh, a snow day. I'm going to pay $80 for a snow day. Still write that check because it's still expenses here. Write that check for a snow day. And you're like, I got a freaking Jeep. I can get there to get some value for the $80 I'm about to spend for that school day. It's a different deal. Burton said, isn't that what college kind of is? And that's the weaning off. I don't believe it is. I think it's just another institution that's closer to weaning you off because, I mean, they have more of a goal of preparing you for some kind of industry or specialization. They're about to hand you off to somewhere, theoretically and through, preaching from a lecturer on what you need to know to give you an advantage over, the next guy. But they don't wean you off. Like if you never had a hunger or a thirst for knowledge, this is the audit for it. If nobody was forcing you into go getting an education today, would you go out onto the interwebs and fetch yourself something you didn't know before? Right? So once you get a job, if you immediately just stop learning, right?
Yeah.
Then all you did was take an end product, a widget, and hand that off to somebody. Then now you're a slave to a salary. It's all that's happening there. So you're not weaning people into freedoms. You're weaning someone into a servitude.
Yeah, because I absolutely would continue to go learn stuff that I wanted to learn.
If in fifth grade, right, it was open to you and your interests governed what you went and learned today. And you had a schedule and a regimen that kept you learning more and more stuff, right?
But what if you get somebody that just learns a bunch of stuff that they're never going to need? Meanwhile, I can't do math.
Listen,
I can't make change.
I do that all the time.
But I can.
But like you said, I had this discussion on the way to school with my 15-year-old. Okay, he was working on a debate summary and paper, so they had to pick 3 debate items. And he got to 2 and he was super interested and he was really struggling to get to the 3rd one. Right. And so he took his interests and he took pop culture and he took all these things into consideration. It gave him 2 good candidates. And I said, here's the deal. You're not going to like this, because what we're going to do is you and I are going to have a random set of conversations. And what likely happens is when we have that conversation, it's interesting, something to talk about, but I want to bail on it super quick to get to the next topic, because one of those things that we talk about and get, exposure to is going to make a light bulb light up at some point. And we went through probably 7 or 8 different topics, and his 3rd summary for his debate popped into his head because he had exposure in smart segments that were the Cliff's Notes version of whatever we're talking about, but it inspired him into the next thing he would be interested in writing about.
I just
happens
had
all the time.
an epiphany.
Yeah.
That I feel so dumb that I did not think of this until this moment.
Okay.
When I was younger, I had a strong interest in sign language. I just think it's the coolest thing. I'm fascinated. I love watching people do it. It's fun to learn. And when I was a kid, I had 2 books at home, and I would teach myself words from these books. Well, if anyone's ever tried to learn it, it can be fairly difficult from a book because it's paper. It's not 3D or whatever dimensional, and you don't have someone else doing it. So you kind of hope you're doing it right, and there's no one there to tell you if you're not. And then I would see sometimes classes like the public library might say, oh, come do this so many week sign language course. And it's like, oh, I can't. It's at a day and time I can't go. And it's not until just now I'm like, I have the whole effing internet and YouTube. I can continue my sign language pursuit
For sure.
and watch videos online.
Yeah.
I might have to get back into that. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not involved in the deaf community. I may never need it. I can think of a couple of instances in my entire life that it came in handy, that I knew a little bit. That's probably all I'm ever going to see, but it's just so fascinating to me that I want to keep learning it.
Well, and that's, schools are supposed to bring out a hunger and a thirst for knowledge, not just take what they want you to learn and jam it into your head. So it's different than if a school who takes a priority on a foreign language and jams it in your head, whether you're hungry for it or not. You're not feeding a hunger by doing that. You're being indoctrinated into what somebody else feels that you should know. But if you had a hunger for sign language and you were willing to like, hey, I got a sign language thing and there's an inconvenience in front of me, you're very unlikely to say, I'm not going to do my sign language, because you're hungry for it. Think about like when you were young and you got your driver's license. The places that you wanted to go because you were interested and hungry to drive around. And then compare that to the things right now that you've been driving. There's no sexiness to it. And the things that you would be willing to do when you first drive that you would absolutely make 5,000 excuses not have to do right now. Well, the brain is, you were hungry for something. You had obstacles that you would go over without objection. Right.
Yeah.
And now, like, one little inconvenience, you're like, I'm not going to the store. I don't even want to go to the store.
Yeah.
That's the difference. We took curiosity and we took hunger and we removed them from education, and we made it indoctrination, where we force information into people who are unwilling and uninterested in what we're shelling at them. So it's just management.
Yeah. I mean, my husband and I, when we originally booked our honeymoon, when we got married, it was going to be, let's fly to Jamaica over New Year's Eve. We'll come home to Ohio for Christmas, see all the family, get on a plane and go to Jamaica and ring in the new year, and that'll be our late honeymoon. Well, Ohio got hit with a massive snowstorm. We tried everything to still get there. Could we drive to Cincinnati? Could we fly from there? Could we do this? What about a later flight? What about whatever? We ended up having to delay it. There was nothing we could do. But how hard do you think somebody tried to go get on their
100%.
vacation? Or if they're like, hey, massive snowstorm, work's closed or school's closed.
Yeah, it's -5.
Oh, darn, I'm going back to bed.
It's way too dangerous to take this vacation. It's uncomfortable to put things through this prism, because it's hard to look at human nature and think we are, susceptible to it.
Yeah.
And that's why I point out, like, I have no problem if you gave me a statistic that during 4 inches of snow that we have, 10,000 bus accidents, and we're mitigating the bus accidents for child injury and we cancel school. That's fine. But you would have to present it in a way that didn't make me want to feel that you really wanted school to be closed and you were looking for the first opportunity to cancel something that should be so super important, like your Jamaica trip, that you would try really hard to do it, right? And only if you ended up where it couldn't be done, you ended on it. We're just so quick to cancel things we don't want to do and bust through obstacles when we actually want to do them.
So if a school came to you and said, here's our statistics of how dangerous it is and kids that have been hurt on the way to school,
absolutely respect,
you'd be like, cancel. They can't be out there.
But I don't, it'd have to have a serious approach, because you'd have to take the ramifications in consideration when you're doing, there's no vanilla option, right? If you do it, there's consequences. If you don't do it, there's consequences. So you basically take the two and you do an assessment, which is worse, right? So if you had a vaccine and you shot everybody up, and if you didn't shoot everybody up, then 10,000 people would die. If you did shoot everybody up, then 100,000 people will die. Well, people are going to die regardless. Which one has the most casualties? Well, when you're talking to a family that died because they didn't get to it, that's a hard conversation. If you're talking to a family that did do it and they died, that would be a hard conversation. So leadership is not for the faint of heart. You're going to have a downside no matter what. But if you have smart people that take all those things into consideration, then you can say, Joe, this was a decision based on 10,000 people died versus 100, and that was the best decision, right? Mm-hmm. Versus just not taking it was
the easiest decision.
Exactly. That I just on a whim decided, we're going to cancel, and I don't know why, because everybody else is canceling. It's too lazy for me.
Let's see. Burton says, we take care of our kids while in high school. Then release them to the college and they end up with $100,000 in debt. Whose fault is this?
Not enough math people, right? And so is it the responsibility of a university who has incentive to get as many people signed up for tuition as possible to go through the financing of your education and tell you, hey, here's the storyline. You're going to do this. You're not going to make payments. You're going to go through 4 years. You're going to get a good education. At the end, you're going to sacrifice 3 years of what you would make, and you're going to give it to us. And we're going to give you all the information so you can work a 20-year career. You can make 17 years of your salary, but we want the first 3, right? And if that kid's like, no, I'm not going to give you 3 years of my salary for this. Now we've had an honest conversation about it. But if we're like, hey, here's a document. It's allowed you to go to school. You can do all the things that you want to do. Don't read any of it. Just sign it, right? And then in 12 years from now, you can go off and complain about all the things that are right in front of you right now, but you didn't read because we really don't want you to read it. You're going to say, I've been here for 10 years and I owe more than I actually got in the first place. Like, okay, that's too late. So these are colleges. They are supposed to be smart people. You know what smart people do? They read what they're getting themselves into. If you're too dumb to read a piece of paper, then I don't think math is for you. I don't think any math courses are on the horizon, or legal, or any of that. So would you want to start your career, right, by doing an interview? And you're interviewing me, and you're going into the math field, engineering, right?
Oh, good.
And like, hey, my first question for you is, when you went to college, did you read the paper that laid out all the parameters of the loan you're about to take, right? Mm-hmm. No, I didn't. Okay, I'm not hiring you. Why? Because college should be getting you ready to be a great participant in the economy, and you don't even bother to read everybody has warned you. You've heard stories everywhere about people being saddled in student loan debt, right? At some point, there's going to be a kid that is getting that loan today that's like, man, I can remember I heard something similar about this might be a dangerous proposition, getting myself in this loan.
What if they say, here's the thing, I didn't read it, and I'll tell you why. Because everybody around me and all my educators and family members pushed on me that this is my only option. Yeah. It doesn't matter what it takes. I can't get your job unless I go and do this.
Susie Smith, you are far too captured by people outside of your own being. And if I hire you,
I was an 18-year-old kid, 17-year-old kid.
You should have been independent at that point. And people can say stuff to you because they care about you, and they're going to give you really bad advice. They probably told you a lot of limiting factors. They're going to affect you for the rest of your life. If you haven't figured that out, you're in your 20s, I want to tell you that
No, you're not in your 20s when this starts.
There are 13-year-olds that figured out how to not die by being attacked by animals and creating shelter for themselves and starting families and planting. If by 18 you haven't figured out how to be independent enough to be able to take information and decide for yourself, this job's not going to be for you. This is all about mathematics, and it's about data, and it's about truths.
What if you were like, I did read it, I did decide for myself. At the time, it seemed like the best option.
Yeah.
And I was wrong.
Yeah. And I want you to find a lower skilled version of what you're applying for today. Someone who is more adopting to soft spirits that are too controlled by outside factors and can't make independent decisions. But thank you for your time. I really appreciate you showing up.
You're harsh. You're harsh. If you don't show up to work, you don't get paid. Just giving them some responsibility.
Yeah. And I think everything should be transactional. Anytime you don't do something, right, all of the benefits of having done it dissipate. And then you can figure out quick when you want to show up. Like, did it, if school cancellations meant that you made less money, would you closer consider that it's so risky, you're willing to take a hit in the salary because you decided to cancel school today? That should be part of the the rubric, right?
Yeah. My salary is based on my experience and my time here. Then I've got to show them my time here.
That's exactly right. And in the AI world, when technology catches up, there's going to be a lot of reckonings with people when you don't get things for free. You aren't paid in the blind for things that you don't do. It's a 1-for-1. If you do it, cool. If you don't do it, that's cool. I look forward to that period of time more than anything because there's so many free riders out there. So let's just say you go to Congress and you don't do shit, right? You got elected and you sit in a chair and you don't introduce bills and you don't participate in anything. There's an AI, right, that basically says, yeah, you got the seat and you hit the league minimum. You get $10,000. Thanks for your time. Hopefully that covers your parking, just like they do jury duty, right? But if you do stuff, if you're like really involved and you do debates and you introduce bills and you sign bills and you're really involved, you make a lot of money. Then you would have a different incentive to become involved and not just be an anchor and, like skating.
Do you think, though, the reality of our situation, I heard somebody say recently that sometimes business is in this era that the bosses, the owners, the whatever, sort of have the upper hand. I don't need somebody that isn't going to not show and half-ass everything and make unreasonable demands and be lazy, yada, yada, yada. So I don't need you, go. And sometimes we're in an era that the people looking to hire are at a disadvantage. There isn't a large pool to pull from. And now they have to bend and someone be like, yeah, I'll come and I'll help you and I'll do some of that. But I'm not going to do this, or this. And they have no choice. There is no one else. Do you think that we fluctuate sometimes? That like sometimes the people that skated by and were able to sort of just do what they wanted to do and not show up and close early and whatever thrive still because of the situation that we've made?
We have a culture of inauthenticity. All right. And the if you had a room full of 10 really hot dudes, right, and you can date them all,
ooh,
versus if you lived in a did you just peek
I'm
up?
Visual. I'm picturing this.
10 dudes and you can date them all. All right. So you're considering like you got to end up with one of them. And so you're going to put a strategy together to lead you to the one that you're most happy with. Versus Kelin that lives in a small town and there's like one good looking dude and like average guys, right?
Yeah.
There's a scarcity. There's a inauthentic scarcity. And so would your standards be different when you had to settle with the one hot dude versus you got 10 to choose from? And would you have an elevated set of standards? You can ask for more, right? Your requirements could be more.
Yeah.
But with technology, and I pitched this, I was in front of an investor a number of years ago. And this is a time where I was hiring a bunch of people, going through resumes, doing interviews. And I'm thinking, we've got 100 million available workers in the United States. And so when I go through and look at resumes, I'm looking at a sample that is 0.000001 of all the specialties in the United States. The likelihood that I run across one that I actually want to hire, right, is basically taking an inauthentic scarcity. I'm settling for somebody only because they are the best of the minute pool that I was able to draw from.
The least, what is it? The lesser of all the evils.
All the evils.
Yeah.
But in the NFL, right, you basically know the metrics on every single person. When you're looking to hire a wide receiver, you still have a very small pool, right? But the information about people and moving those different skill sets around until they find a home within your NFL team is much easier, because there are people right now watching NFL that like football that I would not hire because their metrics are that they haven't done anything. But you have a wide receiver who are accurately measured and everything they can do. So if I had this massive database of every productive person in the United States, right? AI kind of proved this when you had maybe a handful, 50 or 60, AI engineers that understood the technology and were proven out that they could. What did all the AI outfits do? They went into two modes. They went and prospected people that were working for Google to work at XAI. They did the XAI to Apple. They were all taking a very limited skill set and trying to take the people who were proven producers and try to get them under their umbrella. Did you see what they were offering to an AI engineer?
No.
$1 billion signing bonus.
Shut
because
up.
There were so few of them and they were already spoken for. They had to bid up and tempt those people to move. $1 billion to move to my company. Okay. So now
sign-on bonus or salary?
That was sign-on bonus. $1 billion to just come for me.
Nice.
And then the second one was to then curate more AI engineers. So we had only 60 people that could do it. And then we needed like thousands of people to get on that track for that to happen. So the recruitment mechanisms, it was today what the 90s were for in health. Like we were recruiting doctors from India because we just didn't have enough of that specialization. And so we were trying to, headhunt certain ones and make new ones, right? Yeah. And so that's where we're at right now. So if we had this massive database of proven specialties, then all of the companies can go and scrape those people up and take the people from California and, Tennessee and entice them to come and do work for you. And it'll almost be like a sports team where I wasn't just looking at the people who needed work, right? Because that's probably your most least valuable strata of people to hire is the people that are currently don't have anything. And so headhunting and finding people who are doing it in the same way that you'd ask them to do it are your strata, and then curating more people in those industries. So that's where AI and technology, I think, is going to rank us and take a person, put their stats up, put what they can do so that they could be fetched by someone when a need is or when a specialty is needed. I look forward to that day like nothing else. And I was half tempted to do it myself.
Yeah?
Yep.
Half tempted.
Yeah.
How come you didn't do it?
There are a lot of people who, and I don't think we have great standardization for value in people. I think there's too much emotion they're put onto what people and how they're valuable. And when I used to do a Monchu list, right?
What?
Do you remember Monchu list? I told you about this a couple years ago.
I know, I've heard.
Yeah.
I know you've told me this.
So it's basically relational interactions and making a ranking for people based on what they're capable of doing in your world. So you meet Betty Sue. She's not good at anything. She likes to talk, do drama stuff. Like she would be a 0. There's no place.
Unless you're a drama teacher.
There's
just give her a 0 value just because, okay, no value to what you're looking for.
So when I'm like, I need something new going on, Betty Sue's a 0, ranks far below people who whatever. Or you have a politician or an entertainer or an entrepreneur. I would rank them differently in how they would ingrain in what I was trying to accomplish. And I would call all of my 4s first, my 3s second, my 2s next, and so on and so forth. And so I think people overvalue how they and what they are. And so it'd be a really good you would
Because they're
break a lot
selling
of hearts.
themselves.
Yeah, you would break a lot of hearts by taking and putting very mathematical metrics on the value of people and what they can produce. And I think people would feel terrible about it. Like if you got a ranking of 1 and you felt you were super special because you could overcome maybe your lack of specializations with your charisma. But if I don't value charisma, then that wouldn't have me ranking higher than someone who did have a specialization. So anyway, that's sort of what AI is going to be able to do. And I want AI to do it so that you can't, I wouldn't have any bias in it. I don't want someone to rank high or low. I just want to know what they're really good at and how usable they are in some kind of transaction. And then, yeah, I mean, AI would do a better job because it wouldn't be a person to hate. I would be hated.
Would you ever, have you ever had an experience of where someone was very low on your Manchu list and you ended up having to give them a shot and they were actually far exceeding?
It's never happened.
Really? You weren't like, oh man, you really sold yourself short. You should be higher.
No, if there was an accurate gathering of data, if I knew enough to do it, I can plot people on their usability based on
what about the opposite? What if they were high and then you met with them and you're like, oh geez, you oversold it.
It's pretty accurate. I mean, it's almost like going to your tool shed, pulling a tool, grabbing a hammer, and you know when that should be used. And it's basically saying, when I'm doing something that requires a hammer, I'm going to go to my tool shed and I have a shovel and a hammer. I'm drilling a nail into a board, right? And I'm going to pull the one that's ranked, like maybe a shovel gets a 1 because you could pull off a shovel and hammering that in. Only would you pull the shovel if the hammer wasn't also in there, and the hammer's got a 4. So when I go there, I'm like, hammer, shovel, which one am I going to choose? Oh, hammer got a 4. So I pull out the hammer. I'm not going to have an opposition to the hammer once, because it was the proper tool when I rated it, and it was the proper tool when I actually went to use it, if it was an accurate measurement.
It's like YSU charging an additional fee for a remote class versus on-campus class. Do they do that? Does YSU charge an additional fee for a remote class, I wonder?
Okay. Would you, as a consumer, pay more? Let's just say we're talking a concert, Katy Perry, right? You like Katy Perry? Give me Taylor Swift.
Bruno Mars is about to tour.
Okay, Bruno Mars is coming to Cleveland in concert. I have 2 options for you, Kelin.
Okay,
$180 for the in-person ticket. You got probably section 206, row J, right? Now, I also have this other option for you, and I don't have pricing on it yet, but I want you to say if it's equal, higher, or lower. We have a live stream where I'm going to have a camera in the 3rd row, and you're going to have perfect clear audio and a camera fixed as if you're in the 3rd row. Are you paying for the live stream version of Bruno Mars lower than the in-person ticket, equal to the in-person ticket, or higher than the in-person ticket?
So it's clearer, it's better audio, it looks like I'm closer, but I'm not there in person.
Yes.
Or I could go there in person, but
$180.
be in the nosebleeds.
It's not nosebleeds. 206 is respectable. I mean, he's small, but you can hear and see.
Well, it would be paying for the experience of being there. So if it was an artist like, I like Bruno Mars, do I care that much? I may do something remote. If it was an NSYNC reunion tour, I'm there. I don't care what.
Okay, so answer the question: should it be a below cost,
I can't answer questions.
Below cost, equal cost, or above cost?
It's a hard question to answer.
Why?
What do you care about? Just the seeing him and hearing him, or do you care about the concert going experience?
Well, that's up to you as the buyer. You get to take into consideration whether or not being there in person, like what are your hopes for it? What's different about seeing a screen depiction, a 4K version of Bruno Mars versus being in front of the stage? You get to contemplate the parking and the being in traffic and the being around other people and the noise
personally,
and the loudness and whatever. So you as the buyer get to decide that.
I would pay more to see it really well, hear it really well, avoid the public bathrooms and the parking and the traffic and the people spilling and the drunk people and people in your way and the crowds. If I could avoid all that and just see the good show in the convenience and comfort of my own home, that'd probably be valuable to me.
More valuable than the in-person ticket.
Depending on who it is.
Bruno Mars. We were using Bruno
If
Mars.
it's Bruno Mars, probably. I don't want to be in a high-stress situation to see
options.
Bruno Mars.
Below, at, above. Which one of those are you paying? You get to set the pricing because it's a negotiation. At. So equal to. So the live stream and the in-person, $180, you're happy.
If the live stream, I can see and hear better.
Okay. Which you can, and you don't have to be a bunch of other,
yes.
derelicts. All right. Third option. Now, this one it happened yesterday, right? I did a recording. I did the editing. Perfect sound, perfect thing, but it's not happening right now. Would you be willing to take a non-live stream version of it, watch it on delay where you can watch it at your convenience? Think of it like DVR.
Yeah.
Now, is it below, at, or above?
It has a little less value.
A little less. So you want to pay less for the one that's not happening now. So there's one element that's different. Not happening now. So why is the time more valuable than if you're watching it live?
It doesn't feel as authentic to being at a concert.
Okay.
I know that it's not live.
Okay, so take the being at YSU. If you were to watch a live stream of a teacher not in person, probably the same thing. You don't have an appeal because it's not a celebrity or an artist, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you're not in the same room with that person, so you don't benefit from being close proximity to the person that's educating you. Versus, I'm going to record this class and then you just kind of watch it and whatever. And in your brain, the standards that we've elected are there is more value to certain things, in person versus live stream versus, after recording, and we treat them differently psychologically.
Yeah.
If it was about information, from my standpoint, if a teacher's there right now, or the teacher was there yesterday, but it's the same information, I'm only there for the information. I don't care about their lives, their stories. I don't care what they smell like. I don't care.
You don't need interaction.
How they postured. I'm there for information. Period. So if you go to school strictly for information, give me the information in the most efficient way possible. So if you tell me that you're going to take a professor that did an hour lecture on something and you edit it down so it's only 30 minutes of the true information and it costs more than actually in the class, I'm a buyer all day. You can save me time. I can get the stuff, the reason I'm there anyway. You can cut out all the fluff, right? And that's actually a more beneficial product. So you can watch what educational systems produce and know who they're actually catering to and who are your actual buyers of those things. And that's why, if it was just about the information, it's a totally different story.
Yeah. Todd says people with special skills should be able to negotiate their own terms.
And they do. They absolutely do. And that's why I said a lot of people have an overhyped value of their specialization. And in the marketplace, especially now, we're seeing a lot of trending out of specialties that, let's just say I told you in 1995 to get into COBOL programming because it's going to be a huge need. And so you put 4 years of your life into learning everything about COBOL programming. Well, you have a specializations, you can hit your own terms, right? Because you're in such high demand that you're like, hey, I'm walking out if you don't give me $500,000, and without any other options, someone's going to pay you $500,000 because it's marketable. And then you have a shift in technology. The reason you can do $500,000 is the same reason why a wide receiver in the NFL could demand $27 million, because your shelf life is something that is not always going to be valued as high as it is today. Right. And so labor unions and the labor industry want COBOL programmers to make $500,000 forever, even after their market value has plummeted where COBOL's not even necessary anymore. But a true market means that you lined up a development of a specialization in line with a market demand, and then you fetch whatever price that you can for a period of time, knowing in 5 years, COBOL might be out of style, out of demand, and all of a sudden you go from $500,000 to having to either settle for something that's non-COBOL programming at $40,000 or going and fetching a new specialization?
This is sort of off topic, but I'm curious. How do you feel about non-competes? When a company requires an employee to sign a non-compete, like if you ever quit or leave, you cannot work for a competitor within a so many mile radius for like 2 years or whatever that is. Do you like that? Do you not like that?
It's a negotiation. If an industry dictates that you have a lot of moving around, right? So let's just say you had your AI programmers and you're like, hey, I'm going to invest heavily in you. You're going to be an instrumental part of my project. If Google down the road puts $1 billion in front of you, I fear you leaving, and I want to take that off of the table. Not necessarily that you don't want to take that, but you can't take that even if you would. But it comes in a transaction. So if I was like, hey, no compete from you, and then you can ask me something that would then, what disadvantage does a worker have when they can't in an industry work in any other deal, right? That's a huge disadvantage.
Yeah.
So it would be predicated on covering a single instance of my fear. So I'd give you a non-compete that if I fired you, the non-compete's invalid, right? Because this is, I want a single instance where somebody came along, tried to headhunt you, and I want to make sure that doesn't happen, right? We're negotiating what would make you stay, right? And I want, once you say that to me and we have a deal, that you're not just allowed to leave without huge repercussions. So it would be very limited is what I'm saying.
But if somebody presented you with a non-compete that is, if you leave for any reason, including layoffs or termination, you still can't work for 2 years, would you be like, shove that?
No,
or would you sign it?
It's a negotiation. So I would up the level so that there's going to be a benefit for employer and a benefit from worker. And you keep exchanging benefits until you come to some kind of understanding. And part of that negotiation is if you can't come to terms with something, if you don't want something, you're going to move on to the other person. And that's the risk of, like I said, the overvalued or overvaluation of your own skill set, meaning that if you walk in with a demand and it's not reciprocated with willing to serve the demand, you just have to find a place that does serve to serve the demand.
Because I've heard, and I don't know who they are, but I've heard that they say non-competes are about to be a thing of the past, that they don't think they should be around. I don't know if that's going to be like legislation or just common practice. I don't know, but
well, in the wild west of the economy, like you have these two philosophies that sometimes they go heavy on the labor side and sometimes heavy on the capital side. And so these issues don't come up only when something has been over-exercised. And, we're in an era right now where labor has over-exercise their power and control, and the pushback on it is you have the decouple. You have a lot of independents that don't want anywhere near some kind of labor involvement because the value of what you pay versus what you get has diminished. So like if you're stuck in an industry that has to do a labor union and you get a private company that is free from that and you make 25% more money and you have 25% more controls and you're less limited in where you can go, well, that's a great balancing factor where you can say like there was a time where capital had all the power, so labor needed to be the balancing power. Now capital doesn't have all that. In the free market, I can move around wherever I want to. I don't need to be packed in with other people to compete against major institutions. There's so many independents, like I just can get what I want where I want. I don't need you, kind of thing. So that's just kind of where we're at.
Matthew says, I'm going to ask Joe, why do IT jobs in our area overall pay lower on average versus other areas, still require a non-compete then?
Yeah, because there's a lot of horse trading that goes along in IT.
I didn't know IT had non-competes.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I didn't know that.
And it's not so much anymore, but through probably the early 90s all the way through the mid 2010, I would say that kind of ended. There was expansion and growth in how many people adopted digital. Like there were so many standards that were being adopted in the digital side. You had so many people buying equipment and doing digital servicing. There were a real lack of IT positions. Now we have a depressed economy, so that there was a limit as to what you could charge. Like I could take my services to Austin, Texas, and probably charge twice as much as mine. And the economy and the businesses there could handle that, right? Mm-hmm. And so then I had more ability to turn around and pay people, twice what they make here, because the invoices could support that labor. And so there were IT companies that were extremely, it takes about six months to a year to condition a service provider in the field that knows environments and knows people to get used to working in your operation. So you had a heavy investment into getting someone calibrated for your environment. And so you wanted to protect it and make sure that the guy down the street who has 20 new customers that absolutely needs more staffing is going to come to you, offer you $1,000 more than I'm offering you. And then my year's worth of investment in somebody is going to walk out that freaking door. So that was more a protective mechanism. Ohio is right to work, right? And so what that means on both sides of it is I can fire you in 2 seconds, right? And non-competes don't mean shit. It basically is a door lock on your front door, right? It keeps the honest people honest and knows that I'm serious about retaining you. And you're promising me on this letter, enforceability of non-competes in Ohio are almost garbage.
That is interesting because, like a lot of, I've worked in broadcast a number of years and like radio, TV, things of that nature. You can pretty much expect a non-compete. And I've even known people that like left a station and wanted to go to another station and they weren't allowed. They had to get out of the industry, go work any job you can for a couple of years and try to get back in.
Yeah.
And it is funny. My dad, he's retired, but he was an attorney and a magistrate. And I think he said one time, he's like, if there's a job you really want, they have a non-compete, you really want there and you think you're going to be there a while, go ahead and sign it. Because I'm telling you, it's easily fought. And I was like, oh. But a lot of people stick to them.
Yeah, like I said, honest people will stick to them because it's a promise you made during the negotiation. Before you took the job, you knew that was part of the deal. You could have said, no, I don't want the non-compete. And they could have considered hiring you without the non-compete. And that's it. So it's a negotiation.
Many, many years ago down south, I was working for a radio station. And in order to get a job in the industry, I had to go kind of far. I drove about an hour every day because there wasn't anything available local. Did it for about a year and a half or two. And then decided, all right, this is a lot. It was not only an hour drive, it was in another time zone. And so everything was just kind of crazy for that year and a half. Well, something became available close to home. But I had signed a non-compete. And I even met with the other station and we both agreed, here's the thing. Could we do this? Probably. We could probably fight it. But our reputations would be mud in this industry. I would be the person you can't trust to hire because I'm just going to say, screw you. And you're the company that doesn't respect your, fellow industry members because you just ignore their non-compete. So what are we even doing here? And we eventually were like, maybe in a couple of years, if it's still available, I'll be back kind of thing. Because it also, legally, and we even said maybe we could ask them to release me from it.
That's exactly right.
And we talked about that. Could we have the two competitors sit down and say, it would be really great if you could release from this non-compete? And I ended up not taking it. I don't remember why. But because that's another thing to look at is even if you can't legally enforce it, you still look pretty bad if you just sort of signed something and then say, nah, never mind.
Yeah. And that's why, you take those things serious and it's part of the negotiation. And like Matthew said, that non-competes tend to hurt workers since they really have no negotiation. And that the prospect of hiring people should not include intentionally hurting anyone. And that's where the labor movement went really wrong, is they conditioned people that hurting a company, right, is somehow justified and is a moral deal. Your goal is I have a skill, you have a need. Let's try to make both people better. And if you ever get to the point where you have a need, so I have leverage and I'm going to try to hurt you and I won't hurt you unless you do this, it's the wrong type of negotiation. If anybody sat at my conference table and started leveraging me like on day one, or not taking it serious, or not reading the fine print, or not negotiating the part of the deal, once you negotiate, like when you say workers don't really have the ability to negotiate, that is insincere. I do not believe that when you're like, if you go into an interview and you're faking it to get hired, of course you feel like you don't have a negotiation. You're coming as a pseudo employee, right?
Mm.
But if you come as a professional and the person hiring you is a professional and you negotiate through their fears, your fears, and you're trying to make them whole and I'm trying to make them whole, then all you've taken on is an ally where you're looking out for their interests and you're looking out for theirs. But the labor unions created confrontational relationship between employee and employer. And they do every day. They make more of an effort to put those two factors at odds. So we're not having a discussion about like how I'm going to add to you and then you tell me how you're going to add to me. That would be the proper way of negotiation. I've had people sit down at the table and say, look, before we get started, I want to tell you, I'm not willing to work a minute over 8 hours any day.
They lead with that?
Lead with that.
Wow.
Lead with that.
Ooh.
And but it's information. I love knowing that right off the bat.
Yeah.
That this person obviously is looking to scrape value from me and has not been interested.
Well, they come off as you are already my adversary.
That's exactly right.
Instead of working
the marketplace
together.
Basically taught them through the labor movement is that I'm a girl boss. You need me more than I do you. And I'm going to come in with my guns a-blazing and show you that I'm not a person to be messed with. Right.
Yeah.
And so long that I need somebody that's spirited like that. But most of the time, like 92% chance, I'm going to say, thanks for coming in. I appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard things. How do you feel about the expression? It is just as much as an interview for the person hiring.
For sure.
You know, like if I'm sitting down, I do feel like we have this sort of mindset of like, I want to impress you. If you're looking to hire, I want to be hired. I do come in with this air of I'm kind of at your mercy and I hope you choose me and I want to make a good impression. But I think we also have to be like, but it's going to be miserable if I don't see value in this.
Exactly.
And I feel like I'm the wrong person for the job. And
if you fake your way into it, then now you got all the anxieties of trying to play the role that really isn't you. I'd rather hire an authentic person who told me all the truths, even if they were hard to hear. Now I know what I'm dealing with and I'm going to tell you the truths and what you're going to deal with. And if we find happiness in that, then it's a good part of the negotiation. But you don't start off negotiation by leverage, lying, or threatening.
Yeah, you're kind of setting yourself up for failure if you don't go in with the mindset of how can we benefit each other.
So, okay, I want to fight on this one too. Companies want slaves.
Companies want slaves.
Workers choose slavery. Okay, and the founders taught us this. And a Benjamin Franklin quote, but I've heard that he didn't really say this, but I'm going to say that he said it anyway, right?
Yeah.
So you have two things at odds, right? You have freedom and security, and they're always working in opposition.
Freedom and security.
Right.
Yeah.
You basically take some of your freedoms and you trade them for some securities. So let's just say a worker has a set of standards, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's going to make them feel safe is an 8-hour day that is guaranteed to be paid, right? Now, that's security that you're buying. What freedoms are you giving up? Like, what if you came into me and said, okay, I got two different candidates. One said, hey, I want to make sure that I give you 100% efficiency. And when I come in, I'm going to give you 4 hours of 100% efficient work for 4 hours every day. And I only want you to pay me for 4 hours. That way, if I'm paying them, I know that I'm overpaying them for those 4 hours. But if I don't need them, they just vaporize and they're no longer a liability or expense. And I got the person who's like, hey, I can't deal with not knowing what I'm going to make. And I'm only going to make stuff if I feel like working that day. I want the security of being able to be guaranteed that I will make this whatsoever. Well, then we negotiate and I say, well, here's what you're going to have to give up to get that guarantee. I'm going to have to average down your inefficiencies when you're not doing work. And these two people might make the exact same money. One is predicated that if they start, slacking off, then it's not my responsibility and I'm not going to care for their slack offness. If this person slack offs, I'm stuck with them, right? I have to pay them. And my only option is to totally fire them if they start slacking off too much. Well, as an employer, which one am I going to pick? The safe bet, right? Where I'm going to give them freedoms where they're 4 hours, they're agreeing to make it. But if they only want to work 2 hours, I don't give two shits. I only have to pay them 2 hours for what they did. Their agreement was they were going to give me 100% efficient, as many hours as they wanted to work. And I'm happy to overpay them for that luxury. They're giving me something in exchange. But workers, what they do is they want guaranteed benefits, and they sacrifice all their freedoms of mobility in order to get those deals. So they've basically negotiated themselves into tyrannical slavery for the sake of security.
Yeah, because I mean, I've even seen instances where it could be like, hey, I want the security of knowing that I'm getting paid for 8 hours.
Yeah.
Even if, for whatever reason, things got so slow, I gave you maybe 5 to 6 of legit hard work.
Mm-hmm.
I want paid for 8 because I know that there will also be days that I'm there 9, 10, that things are crazy, that maybe I come in early, that maybe I go above and beyond. Won't be all the time, but it's going to happen.
Right.
And I can't be the person that's like, I want you to pay me for 8, even on the slow days, but I'm also not staying for the late days.
Right. And so that's why and that's why I want that to change, where when we decouple that 8-hour work week, but my kid and I had a discussion, one of his reports is doing on the 4-day work week. And so we're looking into like what advantages it would have and what sacrifices you'd have to make as a consumer when everybody's working 4 days instead of 5, and how many more jobs get created because of it, and how you can decouple from those standards means that you get to reevaluate. If you're really smart and you have 20 different skill sets and you had to work 4 days a week, but they're all doing different things. One day somebody wanted you to be a COBOL programmer. One day somebody wanted you to engineer some aviation stuff, and you can lend your skill set everywhere. That guy's going to love the decoupling. You know who's not going to love it? The people who are like one skill set, they want to mail it in. They're going to hate it because what value they actually give the economy, they were actually being overpaid all this time. And now when they have to reckon with how much value they put in there, they're paid 1-for-1 equal. They're not going to like that deal. And there's a lot more of them in society than you would realize.
Yeah, there's a lot more of workers, I think, they're out for themselves. They don't care. It is just a job to put food on the table. They have nothing else invested in it. And those become the must be nice people. Mm-hmm. Like, how many times have I heard someone say to me, oh, must be nice, you're leaving early today. And I want to say, what time did you get here this morning? You want to know what time I got here this morning? Mm-hmm. What time did you get here yesterday? You want to know what time I got here yesterday? How late are you staying tomorrow? Want to know how late I'm staying tomorrow? So yeah, I'm going to leave right now.
So you would be a fan of the decoupling. I would be a fan of the decoupling, and every downside is totally manageable and every upside is amazing. I'm happy when workers can negotiate, but 9 times out of 10, it's either I accept the job so I can pay my bills, or I tell the employer I want XYZ and now they don't want me. But that is sort of like we're paying the consequence of the labor movement up to this point. So you're going to have to bear that because that's what's been established before you came onto the scene. Mm-hmm. If you start young enough, like my kid, I'm going to tell him to stay out of the rat race as long as he possibly can. And from the very beginning, before you accumulate any bills. So this is what schools should be teaching people, right? Don't get yourself stuck in the rat race, because then your options are limited. You basically made the decision to get stuck and I have to take this job, rather than I want this job and I'm really ready to dedicate myself to this job. And that's where colleges should, get kids used to not working during a period of time while they're developing their specialization, but also not acquiring those anchors of responsibilities along the way. Get married later, have kids later, wait till you're established in your deal. And you have many more options than if you try to be an adult too young. You create adult responsibilities. And now all of a sudden, it's not like you can turn down jobs. You have to take the first one that's willing to give you something.
Yeah, you're at the mercy because of it.
Exactly right.
My first job I ever took when I was moving down south, I was moving. I needed a job quickly. I got anything. So I took this job. And I still to this day wonder, was I getting hosed? Tell me what you think as a business owner.
Okay.
I was considered salary.
Okay.
Monday through Friday. Actually, it was Tuesday through Saturday. All right, I'll be quick. Tuesday through Saturday, so many hours a day, whatever, for this much pay, period. Okay. Sometimes the owner worked late and he needed somebody to stay with him. And he'd say, any chance you could stay another hour or two tonight, or another hour, whatever, tomorrow? All right, I'll do that. Same amount of pay. Nothing changed. But if I took a day off or left early, he subtracted. So if I worked overtime, nothing. I'm salary. It's the same pay every week. unless I missed, then he would take money away. Is that a fair deal? Or was I getting hosed?
See, I would, okay, so I would challenge it and I would basically weigh the metrics. So everybody has sort of like a labor efficiency rate. And so if you work 8 hours and you're a 50% efficiency, that means that I paid you for 8 and I got 4 out of you. So every day you'd be accumulating a deficit of productivity for about 4 hours. So if we got to the end of the week, I paid you for 40 and I got 20, you still owe me a bunch. So I could absolutely justify you staying late, right? Now, if you weren't there and I had to hire Bob Smith over here to do your job, that was an expense in that day. I just shifted money that I had to pay someone that day for and give it to Bob Smith. So it would be equal. Should I have to pay 2 people to do the job of 1? So those would be my 2 metrics I'd be interested in.
I don't know. I'd have to think about that. The idea is for a 4-day week, you stagger when workers are working. So you give someone more effort in 4 days to get that 5th day off. So essentially you hire more people and stagger them.
Right. So the consumer doesn't notice it. You don't have people that, you know, gas stations start closing and restaurants start
That's what I was thinking. When you're like, well, if we're only working 4 days, you don't have anything. I was like, well, my 4 days might be different than their 4 days kind of thing.
Yeah. And honestly, if you shrunk it and made everybody's 4-day work week more efficient, so you got more productivity out of them, then you could pay them the same. But human nature is that you give them 4 days and you still get the same 50%. So maybe you had a 5-day work week and you get 2.5 days worth of work out of someone. If you do a 4, you're only getting 2. So you're taking a net negative as people sort of get apathetic and do bad habits and not give good work productivity. So I think it's got theoretically it's good. In practice, it's probably pretty failing. You'd probably have to pay someone for 4 days. And then so everybody be like, well, I need a 5th day's worth of pay. And then you wouldn't have done anything except for create more jobs, but then create more need for additional jobs kind of thing.
Yeah, everybody now has a job, but it's not a very good paying job, or they're not getting what they want out of it.
Yeah, the goal is that make it a 1-for-1, skill set equals pay. And a job having a high efficiency of work productivity. And there's going to be a magic number where you get, let's just say if I had 3 jobs and I had 5 jobs and I worked 1 day at each one of those jobs and I could drill into that job 100%, I could make more money than if I had 1 job that had to pay the full rate on it. And I was only 50% efficient when I was there, because technically I have to average my inefficiencies down to what I was being paid. So I'm working half as much money as I possibly could make if I was 100%. But when you do 5 days a week, you can't be 100%. But if you did 5 jobs, you could be 100% with each one of those 5. And that's that decoupling where I think workers will make a ton more money when they decouple from have a single source of income that they're completely beholden to. What if you had 5 and you're like, at the end of every month, I'm going to drop my worst performer, the one I don't like the most, drop it and add a new one? You're not losing your job. You're just losing one of 5 that you actually had.
Yeah.
So I think that's way more beneficial long term. All right, we're out of here, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to this show on Youngstown Studio. This is original Youngstown content. Feel free to share our videos and tell your friends about us. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel